Welcome back to our Florida podcast. I'm your host, Mae, and every other Monday I share about Florida's unique wildlife and ecosystems or current events impacting Florida wildlife.
Hi, I'm your host, Kaylee. I share about the historical people and places in our state and people that have called this place home.
Last week we talked about the FWC's mission in protecting Florida's wildlife and fish, how great a job the FWC employees and researchers do in ensuring that Florida remains a natural beauty. However, we also began discussing our commissioners, highlighting Rodney Barreto and the potential conflict of interest he poses within the FWC. Now, if you listen to last week's episode, you know that we have 6 other commissioners we'd like to discuss, as well as highlight changes that need to be recognized by the FWC commissioners. Go ahead and get started. It's going to be a little bit different than what we normally do. Kaylee and I are actually going to go a little bit back and forth, talking about each of the commissioners and some roles that are played and some changes. So I'm going to go ahead and start out today with Stephen Hudson. Stephen Hudson is the vice chairman of the FWC. Appointed initially in 2019 and reappointed by Governor Ron DeSantis in August 2022. President and CEO of Hudson Capital Group, HCP, is a family office that invests and manages assets in private equity, select startup ventures, and real estate holdings. HCG has developed over 4,000 apartments and condo units in Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Pembroke Pines, Naples, Sarasota, Tampa, Orlando, and Dallas, for the record.
What is this company's name? I heard Sarasota and I really perked up.
Right. So it's Hudson Capital Group. From what I understood, I think it started from his dad or something. And it's been just kind of like a family business basically. But he's got 4,000 apartments and condo units all across Florida and even in Texas basically. They technically, and this is on their website as well, they do warehouse buildings, office buildings, just kind of a little bit of everything. So not just apartments, but it seems they specialize in apartments and condos.
That's concrete.
Pretty much. Vice Chairman Hudson and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Business Economics, as well as in the Executive Committee of the Marine Research Hub and the Humane Society of Broward County. Yeah, so he's a part of the FWC, of course, he's Vice Chairman, and then he's Executive Committee of the Marine Research Hub, which I don't know too much about the Marine Research Hub. I don't know if you do.
Okay, so real quick search here. Their mission statement on the first page. The Marine Research Hub, MRH, is building Florida's blue economy by engaging collaboration from all sectors to support the commercialization of nature and research-based solutions to create jobs, build business, harden our infrastructure, and create positive impact for the health of our marine environments and community. Headquartered in South Florida, the mission of the Marine Research Hub is to raise the visibility, reputation, and prestige of South Florida's oceanographic research institutions and facilitate the transfer of technology into marketable goods and services, resulting in talent attraction and retention and job creation to build our blue economy. So it's not there is obviously being research done on marine, I'm assuming, but it's for the purpose of making it something marketable and sellable and to attract talent, which I think is going to be a recurring thing. No, it's not in a preserving or conservation way. It's in a making money out of it way.
Shocking.
Yeah. Okay, that's just real quick. That's their mission statement on the first page. So.
Yay.
It's also, I want to point out too, it's tough doing this episode because it's hard to which rabbit holes do you follow all the way through. And I think that we're not investigative journalists, so we're not pulling up tax records, we're not doing all of the crazy stuff. Never mind, maybe we are. Maybe I'm just failing here, guys. I saw that look. But either way, I guess my point being is that we are just trying to point out that there are some very obvious unhidden conflicts of interest based on what the FWC mission of conserve and protect and for the use for multiple generations. But you want to add something?
No, I was kind of joking. I mean, I didn't go so far into finding, not for these guys, but when I was doing the research, though, for Rodney Barreto, I definitely was going through and finding as much as I could, just because not so much to use it, but just because I want to know. I want to know who is our chairman, who are we allowing to make decisions about the state that we love and appreciate. So I was definitely finding, you have to, all the donations that are made to political parties, they all have to be listed in what year and who received them. And so I definitely was going through and finding that information. There was a lot of correlation between the two, but I didn't go as far as tax documents, but maybe one day.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put it past me.
Nice.
And also, I do want to point out, the information that most of us have here is all information that FWC provides on their page about the commissioner. So you can also go to the FWC website and go ahead and read that there as well.
Yeah, so basically for this guy to wrap it up, we're looking at literal development apartment complexes and expanding that way. And then his nonprofit, the Marine Research Hub, is trying to figure out how to develop and monetize the ocean, which is not the same as conserving it. If we
Yay.
need that stated, yeah. All right, my turn. My first commissioner is Gary Lester. Gary Lester first became FWC commissioner in January 2018. He was then appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis on August 2nd, 2022, after 5 years, for a term ending August 1st, 2027. So he'll be serving 2 terms, and that's a total of 10 years. Commissioner Lester serves as president of the village's charter schools. He previously served on the Florida Constitutional Revision Commission, Governor DeSantis's Reopen Florida Task Force, and on numerous boards and advisory groups, including the United States Military Academy Nominations Board and the Judicial Nominating Commission, Middle District of Florida. So that
sounds like so much gibberish.
So basically, this guy runs the stuff with the villages. And if you're not familiar, the villages is a mostly retirement community in Marion County. I think it's actually in 3 counties now. He moved to Florida in 1991. Not that it matters. I don't think you have to have been born here to appreciate Florida or to do a good job at all. But I still think it's interesting how many of these people moved here with like different booms and stuff because they're developers. He also has a Bachelor of the Arts from Louisiana Tech University and attended seminary at Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary in Texas. So his background is being a pastor.
Interesting.
It's like the chaotic, evil, neutral, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that's just neutral. Now, the villages, like I said, they are this, if you've never been there, it's this giant, like, retirement community that then has all these shopping complexes. It started in, I want to say, the 90s. The population hit 25,000 in the early 2000s, which is quite a bit of people. But today, 20 years later, 25 years later, it's more than 133,000. And they're doing $2 billion in revenue in 2021 alone. It's 2021, so that's still 4 years ago that they're doing $2 billion in revenue. So it's a massive community that's like developing and expanding. So in that sense, like he's a bit of a developer as well. And also the areas that he's in, like in Marion, there's a lot of like wild area that's been developed recently to put in these, because it's golf courses, it's big community centers, and then it's full shopping plazas within it. So like all of that's there, and it's being built on historically like farmland, and like it's right up next to like the state forest and stuff. So just one of those other like questionable. I also found an article that I'll link to. I didn't get too into it, of basically accusing him of bullying some local village member, like the village's members who got nominated or elected to a local council. And there was some fishy things that got going on because they weren't in favor of him particularly, and some of the politics and things happening within the community. And then he is like bullying these like little retired guys that are just trying to make their community better through, being part of the local stuff. But I'll link the article. It's a very long article. I'll link that article for anyone that's more interested. But I'm just, like I said, that's why I didn't want to get into it too much. But I did find a really interesting article that definitely made me raise my eyebrows. But I think for the points of this conversation and pointing out where we are disqualified and where we have conflict of interest. Bachelor of Arts from Louisiana Tech and seminary school. Being a pastor doesn't make you an environmental or conservation or any of those other qualifications. So not qualified there. And owning a community that is constantly expanding and developing in the middle of like one of Florida's hubs of like ecological diversity. Questionable as far as like conflict of interest. So there we go. But yes, allegedly.
So I've got Commissioner Gary Nicholas. I don't know. It's his last name is spelled Nicklaus, and I really want to say Nicholas every time I see it. But I've heard it say Nicholas, and I'm just gonna roll with it as is. So He began in December of 2017, appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis in August 2022 for an additional 5 years, so his term will end in 2027. He has received a Bachelor of Science degree in administration with an emphasis on finance. He golfs as a professional level and has had the opportunity to design golf courses to the United States, Mexico, Spain, and the United Kingdom, so basically nationwide. Due to his background and profession in golf, the public has raised concerns about his positions in the FWC and the role he might play in the addition of golf courses to our state parks. And nothing's been proven. There are several news articles that you can read. It has nothing to do allegedly. And so who knows? But basically that is concern that the public has raised, and I agree. It is definitely contradicting to say the least.
Well, and I think too, if we had talked about this like 3 years ago, it would have been like, I mean, yeah, we don't like golf courses, but they haven't been proposed to be in our state parks.
We
And
wouldn't have
now,
questioned it.
yeah, now it feels extra like same thing. Don't know that there may not be a correlation there, but I think we're all much more sensitive to it having it almost happen and having it almost happen so sneakily. And yeah, when you realize like how connected that these commissioners are with the governor and how like that was leaked from the governor's office that they're planning to put golf courses in these state parks. Yeah, I think it's raising some red flags and pointing out things that would have been bad. Also, golf courses are terrible for like wildlife. They're terrible for ecologic diversity and everything. So, if someone's wanting to develop more of them, that once again does not really line up with the values to conserve wild Florida for posterity that the FWC stands for.
I feel like and maybe this is just more of a side note, I feel like if golf courses weren't literally tearing up shit and then turning around and putting in grass that we shouldn't have here, to then putting chemicals, pesticides, whatever we want to call it, fertilizers, all of it, and then also the fact that we're just destroying what's naturally already there. If we were keeping what's naturally already there, maybe putting golf courses in wouldn't be such a big deal. But instead, we've got so much runoff happening that's going to go from our waters. One, we're tearing up everything that's already naturally made. There's just so many more cons because we're going through and actually tearing all this up. And if we could leave it as it naturally, maybe golf courses would still not be great, but they would not be as bad. But we don't do that.
Yeah, it is a good question. Like, is there a way that you can do it where you leave like actual swampy wetlands in there and stuff? But I think the experience would be very different. I think golf, and I don't know, I'm not a golfer, and I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't get it. Feels prestigious and uppity. So that is my bias. But I definitely think it would change the experience for the people that are doing it because you're going to have bugs and you're not going to have uniform grass and like all these things that you have to work around if we're trying to find that balance to keep like, literally the thing is like we're draining wetlands to put these in, to put fake hills in, and then it has to be maintained and like the amount of chemicals that are sprayed on it, whether it's to make it grow, to make it green, to kill the bugs and stuff, like all of that is just completely at odds with like what that natural area should be. So, but it's a neat idea. Like, is there a way to do it a little more sustainably? Also, how many golf courses do we have? Do we not have enough? I feel like we have enough.
For real.
All right. My next commissioner is Sonia Rood, which Rood, Rood, but it's funny to say out loud. Childish, I'm aware. Moving on. She was then appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis on May 20th, 2022 for a term ending January 6th, 2027. So 2027, in 2 years, we're going to need to be active because these people are up on the chopping block. But anyways, I digress. Rood was born and raised in Lake Jackson, Texas, and attended Brazosport College. She is married to John Rood, a former FWC commissioner and chairman. And aside from telling me how many kids and grandkids she has, that's all that the website lets me know. And then when I tried to find her, this woman doesn't have a LinkedIn. She doesn't have a Facebook page, or at least not that I could find in any way.
She does have a Facebook page, but there's nothing on it.
Yeah.
There's nothing on it. There's nothing up to date on it. And the only reason why I knew it was her is because she was wearing the same necklace.
Nice. I found a few articles where someone talked about one One of her qualifications being that that she ran of her family's hunting plantation, which I thought was interesting. And I'd really tried to look that up and find it, and I could not with the amount of time that I had. So we really don't know very much about her other than the fact that she's married to someone who is formerly on the board and that she has like 4 kids and 8 grandkids or something like that. Maybe it's 5 kids. So instead, I looked up her husband since the website wanted to use her husband as a credential. I thought that made it pretty fair game. And when I looked it up, John D. Rood is the chairman of the Vestcor Companies, appointed by Governor Bush in 1999 to FWC to serve his 5-year term. Vestcor Companies was founded in 1983 in Jacksonville, Florida, and has grown to become one of Florida's largest developers of multifamily communities. Yep. So, like I said, there's not very much information about Sonia Rood other than supposedly she ran this family hunting plantation, which I still think is interesting, the word choice of plantation. But at least some background in hunting and like running hunting things, although I would imagine that that would be for profit more than for conservation again, but I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't find stuff about it, so this is all speculation. And then, but what is not speculation is that her husband is the owner of this Vestcor company, was the owner of this Vestcor development company when Bush appointed him in the 90s, and that they are like the largest developer of multifamily housing in Jacksonville. And there's plenty of articles that you can read of him doing interviews talking about like how we need to develop Jacksonville up more and how we need to attract good talent. There's a lot, like same thing with that marine one, the guy with the Marine Research Hub, how it's talking about like attracting talent. There's definitely a focus on attracting people in the tech community to come here and to like bring their families and to like really elevate the place. And I don't know. I definitely think it's interesting, but those things definitely are not in alignment with protecting and conserving our wild spaces. And that's all I got for that guy. Or girl. Actually, that was about Sonia Rood. And yet I still have to talk about her husband, which I don't like doing. I want to talk about her and what she has to bring to the table, but I also don't even know. I didn't even find. It just says attended Brazo Sport College. I don't even know what her degree is in or if she got the degree. Something else I find interesting.
Yeah. Commissioner Preston Ferrier was appointed in March 2023, and his term will end in January 2028 if Governor Ron DeSantis doesn't reappoint him for an additional 5 years. Graduated in 1989 with a bachelor's degree in economics, focusing on sales management, and is currently the CEO of Furman Motor Car Company Inc. and CEO of Cigar City Motors Inc. Currently, he serves as a member of the Florida Council of 100. And as well as the vice chairman of the Fish and Wildlife Foundation of Florida, which partners with partners within FWC as well.
Okay, so I looked up that Florida 100 Commission because you kind of mentioned that last night. And so your guy, Ferrier, is on there, but also our guy, Barreto, who we talked about last week, is on there and pretty high up on there, as I recall. But they are a nonprofit that does research, their own research, and they're all about workforce development to bring in more money and raise the GDP. Which all sounds really good on the surface. They're doing research about education and pointing out where education is bad, where there's gaps. They're trying to bring in more work. They're trying to increase the workforce and increase the money that's being spent. But they have a very specific idea on what that looks like. So on their website, it says, Florida is good for business. Want to connect your business with top talent in global markets? Florida's regions offer a wealth of opportunities for businesses to thrive in diverse, high-growth industries like aerospace, finance, manufacturing, e-commerce, and life sciences. Florida is good for investors looking to invest in dynamic, high-wage industries. From fintech to biotech to semiconductor manufacturing, Florida has a wide range of venture capital and asset-based investment opportunities that are growing quickly in number and size. And finally, Florida is good for talent. Ready for your next career move? No matter your skill set or specialty, Florida offers exciting career opportunities, world-class education, and a uniquely attractive quality of life found only in the Sunshine State. They also have a map of areas that are rural areas of opportunity, which sounds really good. Opportunity. And I'll post the picture but all the black is where they have areas for opportunity pointed out. And I pulled up where the state forest and wildlands are, and it lines up a lot with like where our state forests are. And two of our commissioners are a big part of this committee. Once again, I'm not saying that I don't want to take a moral idea on like, is this committee bad? Is this committee good? I think look into it and see for yourself. I think that there's a lot of things that can be thought of as good that they're doing, but I wonder about the actual execution, who it's actually benefiting. Like this seems to me like they're trying to bring in very wealthy people to develop, to grow, to like make opportunity to make larger cities. Like I thought it was kind of interesting because you used the analogy last night when we were talking about this, that, you know, it's like trying to make Florida New York, or trying to make Florida a Silicon Valley, like a tech bubble sort of thing. And that obviously comes with some very good opportunities. And it also comes with a lot of things that I think a lot of the people in the state would not be as fond of. I mean, I can tell you right now, I have so many conversations with people and with family members that are going like, everyone's moving here and they're trying to make it like New York. They're like, Florida's Florida and we don't want that. And I think a lot of the common people don't necessarily want that. And that's a different conversation of whether like these things are good or whether they're bad. And honestly, I don't think anything's good or bad. Everything is, there's so much nuance to stuff. But I think it's important to acknowledge, especially for our purpose today, the conflict of interest and people that are actively leading a nonprofit to develop the state into these areas of mass commerce and production and everything, being the same people that are supposed to be conserving it. And the areas that they're conserving, these forests, the state parks, all of that, lining up with all these rural areas for opportunity. That's not the point of the FWC. The FWC is to conserve, to protect the animals and all of that. The point of the FWC is to not turn Florida into a money-making machine where we're extracting every living resource. And that's what I want to point out as being like this is why we're getting frustrated. Like we can have our own ideas about whether tech is good, whether venture capitalism is good, whether investors are good or anything. But the people that want to develop the state shouldn't be the same people in charge of protecting and conserving it. Like those are opposites.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Our last guy is actually the person I had the least conflict with, and maybe that's purely because I didn't do enough research, but I don't know. Albert Maury, Maury, Coral Gables was appointed to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission on April 14th, 2022 by Governor Ron DeSantis. He is appointed for a term ending August 1st, 2026. Commissioner Maury is the president and CEO of Leon Medical Centers, LLD. He previously served on the Florida International University Board of Trustees. Maury earned his bachelor's degree in finance and accounting from Florida International University. And he owns 8 Medicare hospitals / outpatient facilities that make $337.6 million in revenue. I didn't see as many obvious conflicts of interest with him. I want everyone to form their own opinions on this. I don't want to be like, these people are all evil and this is what you should think. But he does have a bachelor's degree in finance and accounting and not anything to do with environmental science or conservation or any of that.
I also want to, what you just said, but definitely, like, we're definitely not trying to give you your opinion by any means, but also we definitely want to be sharing information and sharing who our commissioners are, because then at that point, you know, like, if you have a certain interest or care that maybe Kayla and I don't, then at that point, then you decide that, you know, that's where your interest is, and you want to look at more information, you want to know more about who your commissioners are, and if you're not a fan of it, and then this is hopefully going to teach you a little bit about it, and then at that point you can go forward and do your own research, continue to make your own opinions, and then decide, you know, how, you know, can we make a change.
Yeah. And I think the reason that we want to talk about it is because we do care, and obviously there have been problems, or else we wouldn't have to be like every weekend people are having to go out and protest. Either it's golf courses being in parks, or the development of parks, or land swaps, and all of these things like run through the FWC. And so that's part of why we want to talk about this, because I did not know how the FWC worked. I didn't realize it was just like appointed by the government. I didn't know that people could so obviously be donating to a government's campaign and then get appointed by that same governor, and that's just accepted. And like, so things like that make me really go, okay, we need to reform this FWC so that this isn't the case. And also like be aware of who we're voting for and like what all they have power over, because I think sometimes like I forget, or I'm just like completely oblivious. And the FWC feels like it's always been here, but it's still pretty young. It's still pretty new, really, in like the grand scheme of government. So, and it is something we care about. And I also wanted to point out too, so like obviously we covered that like none of these guys have a true background in conservation or environmentalism or anything. Some of them have had hobbies of hunting or are sportsmen as like hobbies. But I wanted to point out some of the requirements to work in other positions in the FWC. Because, like you covered last week, the FWC covers a lot of different things. You've got like the law enforcement, you have the researchers, you have education, and all of that. So I have an example from each of those categories because I just went on the FWC's job board to see what jobs they have open and what their requirements are. To be a FWC officer, you must be at least 18 when applying and 19 at the date of hire. You need a high school diploma or GED, must be a U.S. citizen, have a valid driver's license with limited violations. Your criminal history, no felony convictions or misdemeanor convictions involving perjury, false statements, or domestic violence, which I want to point out is different than sheriffs. Sheriffs can have a history of domestic violence. Look into those rates on your own time. No DUI or BUI convictions within the past 5 years, no refusal to submit to a breath, blood, urine test within the past 5 years, and no dishonorable discharge from the U.S. Armed Forces. Physical abilities must pass a physical abilities test, including swimming and a yearly physical test assessment. Basic abilities test must pass the BAT with cognitive abilities, which tests cognitive abilities. Background investigation, and then specialized training, which is the other thing I want to point out. That's very different than like our commissioners. FWC provides specialized training in conservation law enforcement, including fish and wildlife conservation laws, land navigation, and GPS.
Sounds like a whole lot of work.
There's a whole lot of work. It is a whole lot of work, and it is specialized work and specialized education for these things. All right, one of the other categories I looked up was research. So I found a job to work in the marine fisheries. And I looked at several different biology jobs that were required, and some of them have different levels of needs. Like they had like biologists 1 through 4, I think was the qualifications. And I think this is just for biologists, like biology 1. So 4 years of professional experience in a closely related biological field or laboratory program is required. A bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university with a major in one of the biological sciences can substitute for the required experience. Preferred qualifications, preference may be given to candidates with a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university with a major in one of the biological sciences. Preference also may be given to candidates demonstrating direct knowledge of fisheries, experiences, identifying finfish to species, or relevant experience working in marine fisheries monitoring programs. So this is specifically like a level 1 biologist for marine is what this job is for. There are other ones where it required 7 years of experience, and like 4 of those could be in the lab at school, but 3 of those needed to be in the field. And I also think like it's interesting that their degree has to be in science and biology. All right, and then this one was my favorite. Education. Helping at a youth camp requires a high school diploma and basic understanding of conservation with prior knowledge of at least one topic: shooting sports, hunter safety, archery, bow hunting, education, freshwater fishing, camping skills, canoeing, kayaking, wildlife viewing, and hiking. A high school diploma and at least 2 months of experience in wildlife conservation fieldwork, conservation or natural science, and 2 months of experience working with youth. For $600 a week, working over 40 hours a week. Most meals, but not weekends included, and housing included. But to work the summer camp, you have to have 2 months of experience in wildlife conservation fieldwork. That seems like a really good background for our commissioners to have, like minimum.
As a bare minimum.
Yeah, and I understand that we need commissioners of all different backgrounds. And you talked about this last week when you talked about like the proposed changes where like Some of them would be the conservation, the scientists, the like research, the understand the science and stuff. And some of them would be more of like the business types that are gonna to get things going. Because I fully agree that we need everybody. We need the organizers, we need the business, we need the like let's turn this into action. We also need people that know what they're doing and what they're talking about when we're talking about these topics. I know you kind of expressed frustration watching at the bear meeting, and like, the scientists are there and they present the research, and then some of the commissioners were just kind of like, I don't even know what that means. And it's like, it's your job to know what this means if you're making decisions on this. You're making decisions for the people. So I just wanted to point out that, like, it's not that FWC is just loosey goosey. The people that are working in it and on it are extremely qualified and very committed to the values. The frustration here, like, as we pointed out before, is just these commissioners don't seem to align with the values of the company, or not company. It's not a company. Don't seem to align with the values of the commission.
Well said. I like that.
I just thought it was funny too. Like, to get paid $600 a week working over 40 hours at a summer camp outside, you at least had to have 2 months of working in conservation.
Right. I want to emphasize that we recognize the importance of earning a living to support oneself and one's family. The issue is not necessarily the career. So the takeaway from this week's episode is not what is wrong with all the developers, but it's the individuals with these careers who could also benefit from the decisions that FWC enables them to make. The concerns with these careers and our FWC commissioners are also how they contradict the FWC's mission, which is to manage fish and wildlife resources for their long-term well-being and the benefit of the people. Researchers within FWC are required to have specialized training and a background that best serves the FWC. If our commissioners do not share a similar background, how can we be sure they have the best interests of Florida at heart? How can we be sure that this isn't in the best interest of their businesses? As Florida continues to develop, the public is often overlooked when participating in quarterly commissioner meetings. The information and background of our commissioners are questionable. We want to see better requirements for having a background in conservation, environmental sciences, or wildlife biology to ensure that our researchers at FWC can present the facts from their hard work and dedication. We then can be sure that our commissioners understand and make the best educated decisions in managing fish and wildlife resources for the long-term well-being. Thank you.
Well said. Agreed.
All right, Kaylee, you want
Bring it
to
home?
tell us what we can do? Bring it home?
Yeah, when I was researching last night, I was getting really frustrated and feeling very hopeless because, like, these positions are just appointed, and like, we're stuck with in theory we're stuck with this for like the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years for some of these guys. And so I was trying to find like a positive call to action, because I don't like it's like the hurricane thing. I don't want to give you information and scare you and make you frustrated without creating some sort of like action. What can we do? So with that said, I think it's really important. We got to keep up with the news and what's going on and get involved where we can. So whether it's, I know this year I've gotten way more involved than I ever have before with like emailing. Thank you.
Look at us go.
Emailing our officials and calling. And I haven't made it to any of the protests yet, but I love seeing like the people that are getting out and like protesting, whether it was the state parks or the land swaps, specifically like these things that are FWC oriented. So just pay attention to that, because when we raise our voices, stuff does get shut down and has been, and like there's been new things that are signed in. So pay attention to that, and we can include some sources that we follow in the comments to kind of help keep an eye on things. It's also important that we, like you said, we want to reform the system, so we need to be looking into how that's done. And I'm running up against walls on that, so we're going to keep looking into this more as we get more information and see new opportunities. We'll be sharing as well. With part of that is going to be like going to the FWC meetings and having our voices heard and connecting with other people that want the same thing. That way, because we're stronger together, and then this is going to require collective action because it's for the people. So August 13th through 14th is going to be the next FWC meeting. It is in Havana, Florida, which is a suburb of Tallahassee. So they haven't announced the exact location or the exact times yet, but it will be a Wednesday, Thursday. We are planning on being up there, even though I got to get a hotel or something. But we're planning on being there, and if you can, then I highly recommend that you're there too. We're hoping to really start connecting with more people in the community that are taking action. And then obviously we got to pay attention to who we're nominating and what they stand for. And if we elect people, then we need to demand that they do better. All of these commissioners are directly linked to the governor. And that's because we don't have any of this reform or any of these checks and balances. He just gets to choose who it is. So we need to be aware of that and demand better if we don't like it. The government works for us.
Supposed to, at
Yep.
least.
So that is my sort of trying to cheer us all up and provide a outlet for our frustration to be productive. I will keep you guys posted as we come across more information.
Yeah, so that is a wrap for this week's episode. We hope you have enjoyed it. I think for a little while we're kind of go back to some of our normal scheduled podcasts that we kind of do, but we did take a little break and jumped into our commissioners. I do feel like whenever there's going to be something big going on, kind of like how there is right now, I'll probably transition to wanting to share about that because I think it's just important to share about, share about Florida and trying to preserve it. But with that being said, Kaylee, do you have a sneak peek at next week's episode?
Yeah, in effort of getting back to like our normal and also having like so many disaster episodes in a row, like literal disaster. Anyways, we're going for a good old Florida man story.
Nice.
Yeah, I cannot wait to watch your
I've
face
ever-
watch this or listen to this.
Wow, this is fun.
Yeah.
I saw the drive of it. I was looking at our Google Drive last night and I saw it and I was working on finishing up the research for this and I was like, I could take a sneak peek.
Yeah, I think I just labeled it weird stuff.
You did. And I was like, I know that's for this week. Like, I want to, but she'd kill me a little. So I did not sneak peek ahead of time.
Yeah, so if you want a good, wow, what? Story, join us next week. In the meantime, please like, follow, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram. We're on Facebook at our Florida Podcast, as in like this is our state, like all of us collectively. So our Florida Podcast. You can also email us, ourfloridapodcast@gmail.com. We would love if you guys have any stories that you want us to tell or think that we should research, any books you think we should read, any experiences with anything that we've talked about. Send us your stories. If we can get more listeners to send us stuff, maybe we can do some fun bonus like listener story episodes where we get to share.
That'll be exciting.
Very cool. Also, we're getting close to 100 followers on Instagram, and yeah, if you want to follow somebody and get them very excited, we text each other every time that there is a new subscriber.
Every time. All right, guys. See you next time and have a great rest of your Monday. Bye.
Bye.